Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Season 4 of Uncaged. My name is Mike Larkin, and joining me today is the one, the only DC, Daniel Crimmins. Dan, we are back at Season 4. We have a hell of a season for the people.
That we do. We had come off a huge Season 3. We keep on doing it bigger, keep doing it better, bigger topics. And, it's good to be back. We took a little vacay doing the thing here. Our last show, folks, in case you haven't seen it, was picking the ultimate WrestleMania based on existing matches that have already occurred at WrestleManias. And I think we had a damn good card. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure Mike's going to leave a link to where you can find it.
Yes, sir. That link will be in the description. And another link we have here is a link that I sent to Dan, which is the topic of today's forum, the Lost Pay-Per-View.
Mike hates me, folks.
WWE Girls Gone Wild, live from spring break in conjunction WWE Girls Gone Wild on March 13, 2003, 2 weeks before WrestleMania 19. Yeah, this happened.
One of the worst WrestleManias of all time.
I don't know about that. WrestleMania 9.
Okay. Mike, I have seen every WrestleMania. Trust me, if anybody has the right to say something is the worst Mania, it's me.
I don't know about that. I'm going to say WrestleMania 9 and 11 were worse than WrestleMania 19.
That's on the list. We have 40 of them now. We can say, that is on the list.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Okay. I'll give you it. I'll give
remind our viewers, for the lead up to Mania 40, I literally said, you know what? I want to do them all. And I ran the gauntlet. Every single WrestleMania from 1 to 39, at the time 39.
Yep.
Took the better part of a month and a half, because that's another lot of wrestling nonstop. And honestly, one of the worst, I'm gonna say it, was WrestleMania 1.
Ooh, the inaugural WrestleMania featuring Hogan and Mr. T.
It didn't hold up well.
True. I mean, Liberace doing the dance with Rockettes, yeah.
But again, that's 40 years ago.
That is true. This is very true. Well, this also, speaking of didn't hold up, Mr. Daniel Crimmins, this pay-per-view did not hold up well 21 years later. Now, I will say this was the first time both of us have watched this show. I remember being
I didn't even know it was a thing.
They promoted it twice. When Tori Wilson and Dawn Marie had a bikini contest, they promoted it, and they promoted it on Raw because Test was a judge on this, which we'll get to that. Jesus Christ.
The late, great Test.
God rest his soul. But watching this 21 years later, and especially all the stuff we've heard about Vince McMahon, and especially that goddamn Joe Francis, what were your thoughts watching this whole hour and 20 minutes of Girls Gone Wild?
That it was an hour and 20 minutes too long. It's one of those things. It was popular at the time, the whole Girls Gone Wild thing. Folks, if you ever weren't able to sleep and you were up at midnight or later, you saw the ads. They even had the ads on Nickelodeon back in the day.
I believe they did, yes. And I remember, my first introduction was actually to wrestling with this, because they used to run the ads on during Raw of the Girls Gone Wild DVDs. Yeah. And they were if I remember correctly, because the pay-per-view channels now, New Yorker, I'm sure, I don't know if they're different now, but I remember 92, 93, 94, in the 90s were the pay-per-view channels. And I remember seeing the Girls Gone Wild pay-per-views. They were $20. They were very cheap. They were very cheap nonetheless. But
even back then, that was for a pay-per-view, because I remember, I think WWE pay-per-views at the time,
yeah,
were $30 for non-big ones. For Mania was $39, maybe $40.
Yeah, that was 40, and I think the regular pay-per-views were $34.95, which is not bad. But WrestleMania was an extra $5 or $10.
And then it went. I have no idea what they are, because I know they're still a thing.
Yeah, and people still buy pay-per-views. I mean, God bless you, but I mean,
why?
That's my thing. People still buy pay-per-views. Okay, that's fine. Do you? But no,
and it's people that have the internet. Dude,
get on the peacock.
The peacock.
Get the peacock. Get on the cock. Not like that. Pause. Get on the peacock.
Oh my!
But no, this show. So they promoted it like twice. And then the big thing that they promoted was it's Tori Wilson versus Nydia and a body challenge. So we're going to run through it because I did find a review of it that we were also going to talk about. This person did as well. There's many different forums for it. There's not going to be like I usually do, Dan, with this. As you see, like we'll put images in here and I'll make it nice for everybody. But since this is a Girls Gone Wild show, I can't really do too much photos because I do not.
We don't want to get kicked off YouTube.
We don't want to get kicked off YouTube.
We don't want that.
We don't want it. We don't want to. But with this show, I will say this. Josh Matthews looks like the lost member of the Backstreet Boys. And we'll get into Josh Matthews because he's on here as well as the coach. But Josh Matthews in Panama City, Florida at the beach house with the girls and everybody partying at the beach house. How funny was it to see Josh Matthews being a part of this? Because they were in 2 different locations, which we'll explain. But
I like Josh Matthews.
He was good. I mean, he was. I just thought he looked funny because it was just he's just sitting there like, I'm really uncomfortable, like being around all these people. They're drunk. Everybody's showing their breasts. And he looked like he did not want to be there, like at all. He was just like, this is just not my thing.
Like, get me out of here.
Get me out of here with all these fucking college kids. Fucking, oh, man. But
I was on Tough Enough.
I was on Tough Enough. But yeah, no, Josh at the time was doing the interview thing. He was a commentator on Velocity. He was an interviewer on SmackDown. But with what
he good on commentary, I've enjoyed his commentary.
Even in Impact, I was okay with his commentary. Like he had a good voice. He did. A wrestler, but as a voice, he was very good.
As a wrestler, you can see why Maven won.
I absolutely agree. And he's been doing great things with his YouTube channel with what he's been talking about. My goodness, shout out to Maven.
I guess he's trying to consider making one last run.
Which I would be fine with because I think he could give great advice. He does have the announcer voice or of a commentator. So, I mean, if he was to aspire to do that, that'd be dope.
Hey, Bottom. Hey, if David Arquette can make a comeback, just Maven, if you happen to watch this, don't wrestle Nick Gage.
Well, he has wrestled Matt Cardona, but I mean, hey, so. Oh my goodness!
David Arquette learned the hard way. You don't fuck with Nick Gage.
You don't fuck with Nick Gage at all. Nick effing Gage. There's a reason why, but there's also a reason why with this show. So I want to talk about before you even get into it, and we'll read everything. Joe Francis, first of all, scumbag, sleazeball, and number two. When Girls Gone Wild, now this was supposed to be a big tout at the time because Girls Gone Wild was big. WWE, oh my God, it's a great crossover with the women, the divas, what have you.
Makes sense.
It does. But what were your initial thoughts on Girls Gone Wild and how this whole thing really came into fruition?
Like, we talked earlier about things not aging well, shows, and that's with life. Some things, like wine age well. This is like looking back at it now. It's like when you forget the pizza, on the countertop for a couple of days, or you leave eggs out. What happens if you leave eggs out?
Mm-hmm.
Especially this time of year.
Oh my goodness, spoiled rotten eggs. Nope.
Even that, but still, like, it just so wrong even at the time. And I remember reading, like, there were rumblings about Girls Gone Wild, and that it was there was underage women, that he coerced the statements out of them, like didn't tell them what they were signing. And maybe that's true. I don't know. It's. If I remember, I think he even did time over this stuff.
Yes, and then I think years later he got arrested for spitting on a woman and like in public intoxication, and he's had a very rough career. He was just I remember even looking at him because like he oozed douchebag, if that makes sense. Like he oozed the douchebag vibes.
And you can tell this was a Vince McMahon decision.
Well, I think Vince and Linda had like a thing like earlier with Girls Gone Wild and Playboy TV at the time, and then here comes Joe Francis, and they're like, "Oh yeah, now we can do a pay-per-view. We can come together and friggin' just just an overall like splice. They put it together, cohesiveness, if you will." And it's like, no, In conjunction, baby. In conjunction.
No, it shouldn't have happened. It was dumb. Or, as runner-up to King of the Ring would say, stupid.
But I will say this to you, sir. The fact that not even that we're doing it, there was one ad break for WrestleMania on this, that they did this 2 weeks before WrestleMania 19. That's what gets me. Like, you're doing this 2 weeks before your biggest show of the year.
Yeah. Like, nothing. So, was there supposed to be more? I wonder. Because, I mean, it just, even the production values, I mean, granted, it's, 20 years old.
21, yeah.
Just seems like, like the production values weren't there.
No, and they had to do 2 locations because in this particular location, cops threatened to shut him down. And Joe was like, all right, whatever, want to arrest me, whatever. And that's why we saw Panama City Beach, Florida. So we had a beach house and we had the actual live event. So where this actual live event took place was, excuse me, let me pull this up here. So this took place, just friggin' it's ridiculous. Tequila Frogs in fucking Texas. Out of all the places that this took place, at Tequila Frogs concert venue in South Padre Island, Texas. And it took place.
Of course, it happened in Texas.
And we'll pull up the report in a second, but Tequila Frogs concert venue in fucking Texas. And Panama City Beach, Florida for the beach house. So you had 2 locations. I can't, man. And you know what even creeped me out about this? That we had the coach in the tub with the young girls. And I'm like, here's what also kind of creeped me out. Because coach at the time, obviously Jonathan Coachman is an older gentleman now. He's in his late 40s, early 50s. Coach was like 30 here, like around my age, like early 30s. And I'm like, even me, I would not get in the tub with those girls because those girls were like 18, 19. And I'm like, ugh, it felt dirty to me, man, watching Coach in the hot tub with those girls.
Yeah.
Like, and just there's a lot of dirty innuendo jokes here that don't age well. I mean, we got Snoop. Where we thought that we got Snoop as a judge, Snoop D-O-double-G, baby.
I can't hate on Snoop.
No, I can't either. I can't.
Snoop is a cultural icon. Like anybody who grew up in that time, in the 90s, like mid to late 90s, like the guy. Like he's one of those dudes, he's lived that life.
Oh, he has. Did I ever tell you? And I've never told anybody this. So this came out in 2003. I was in, I was probably in, elementary school, going in like 5th to 6th grade. And I think Drop It Like It's Hot was coming around that time. That was actually my ringtone for a little bit. Drop It Like It's Hot.
So I think everybody had that ringtone for at least a hot minute.
When the pigs try to get at you. But yeah, no, it's stupid. You can't do no wrong. And one of the judges that I thought was hilarious on this, because of like out of everybody that they got Kylie Bax, who was a supermodel from New Zealand. And as I was looking at this, and I thought to myself, who? like I don't know if you know this, but when you heard her, like I had no idea she was even like a thing back in the day. She was in like movies like Get Over It. She was in Boys and Girls with Jason Biggs and what's his face, Freddie Prinze Jr. Like, do you remember Kylie Bax at all or no?
No,
I was
I've never heard of her. I had to look her up.
Me too. I'm like, this random ass supermodel. Like, they got to judge this. It was Tori Wilson, Snoop Dogg, Joe Francis himself, Test, and Snoop, and this chick. And I'm like, what? How do you pitch to a supermodel? Hey, here's what I want you to do. We're gonna do this thing with girls in bikinis, and they will get topless, and we want you to be a judge. And she goes, okay. You got Kylie Bax. I don't get it. Money. He paid her well. I don't get it, but yeah, she was one of the judges on this. And for me, and I think why a lot of people got pissed, and I was reading up more on this, besides the fact that this did like very low buys, like 70,000 something buys, like if you're advertising a 2-hour show, right, you got fucked. Like I equated to December to Dismember. You were thinking 3 hours because it's a WWE pay-per-view, ends in like 2 hours and 15 minutes. This ends in 1 hour and 20.
I want my money back.
I would want my money back, right? If you're paying for a 2-hour show and you give me 1 hour and 20, I want my money.
It's like I remember with December to December, like with that, like I remember like wrestle pay-per-views usually ended at like it would start at 8, end at 11, maybe 10:45.
10:50.
No, I remember December to December ended at like 10:20.
Yep, exactly.
And you could tell they just, because honestly, we all know Vince was so pissed off at the show. He said, "All right, end it."
Because if you remember, it was like such a quick shot. It was like Bobby Lashley's a champ. See you next time. Bye. It just went right off the air with that.
And Paul Heyman quit the next day, or got fired,
yeah, whatever. But that's the thing. It's like you advertise 2 hours and you get a fucking hour and 20 minutes of dreck. That's all this was dreck, and they thought this would be a good idea. They don't even talk about this. This will never be on a WWE network. This will never be on anything. And they actually used this against Linda McMahon when she was doing the campaign, her first campaign in 2008. It's like she's running, and it's like, well, ma'am, you worked with Girls Gone Wild back in the day, and she had to explain, like, well, we had a great relationship with Joe Francis, and it was hot at the time. And I'm like, this did not help Linda McMahon's campaign.
And then they brought it up again the second time.
Yep.
And I think they even brought it up at her Senate confirmation hearing when she was going for the whole SBA thing.
Yeah, they bring it up. It's like, hey, Linda, how about that Girls Gone Wild thing back in the day? Like, it's going to be brought up because.
How about that husband of yours?
Oh, yeah. Ugh. This explains so much.
Dude, this, like I said, this whole show reeks Vince McMahon.
We're going to do a show where the girls gone wild.
And you know what? I guarantee you, if Linda if the worst happens and you know who wins, and Linda goes back in,
oh Lord,
like Vince is gonna come back up. This is gonna get mentioned.
Donald,
or Vice President McMahon.
You want to play, pal? I can just see it now.
Congress is now in session.
Congress is in session. God damn it.
Somebody get Alberto down here.
Oh, Jesus Christ. But you get what we're saying, folks. Like, this had Vince McMahon's fingerprints all over it.
This was around the time of the HLA angle, which I think they ran it like twice. And again, like Vince McMahon, you look at me just say, yeah, this is Vince.
Yeah, this was around WrestleMania 19 time, so this is when he was feuding with Hogan, and that build for WrestleMania 19. But yeah, no, this was something that they tried, and it failed miserably. But also, if you're fans of the Girls Gone Wild product, mind you, a lot of them are not wrestling fans, right? They're just fans of the smut, so to speak, if you will, because it's what it is. How pissed do you think they were? Because you're thinking, body challenge, Tori Wilson and Nydia. Oh, my God. 2 girls from the WWE. And it's Nydia is like, yeah, you want to see him? And she fakes doing it. And then she attacks Tori Wilson with a chair and takes out Tori. You literally paid to see a WWE angle on a Girls Gone Wild pay-per-view. How pissed do you think those fans were?
Oh, I guarantee you they were. I mean, it's, the whole thing. When you go from... like the first point you mentioned, the show being only an hour and 20 minutes, despite being advertised for 2, that's enough right there.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to this. It wasn't, initially you think, oh, Girls Gone Wild featuring WWE. No. This was WWE featuring Girls Gone Wild. The whole thing was just, it was unfiltered shit. This is something that, when Vince controlled at the time, I think he had like 55% of the company.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to tell him no.
No, and the thing too as well is you have all of these people. Test, who is drunk off of his ass. Snoop, who is drunk and high off of his ass.
Mostly high.
Coach, just like
having a good time.
that was the thing. And coach, and they booed the coach because it's like, whoa, we can't go that far. And everybody's like, boo, we want to see boobs, boo. Like they booed because they know they can't go that far. They know they can't go that far.
Then, even if they could, I can't see any of the women at that time going along with it.
No, and I mean, Stacy was there to have a good time. I mean, we had some interactions with her and the girls and like whipped cream, and I'm like, oh, all right, yeah. But they didn't do anything like to that extreme. It was just like mostly topless stuff, sensual innuendos. Can I just say one thing? That poor girl, that poor librarian, they booed her because she was a virgin. How, for women, how humiliating and degrading is that? Like, even just the fact that we're doing that, how fucking humiliating and degrading is that? Being booed for that, and just the whole thing in general.
Like,
good.
Has society gotten better in that regard? I'd like to think so.
I think so too. Yeah, I'd like to think so. I think we're more.
Back then, it's like,
oh my God, she's a virgin.
And that was anything with guys, with girls. Like, it's, well, you haven't done it yet? Like,
what?
Grow the fuck up.
Yeah, I literally felt like I was watching this and watching that reaction. Didn't you feel like you were back in high school?
Yeah.
That's what it was. That is like high school behavior. Like, dude, what do you mean you haven't done it yet? Come on. It's literally what it was.
Do it.
Yeah, when are you going to do it? Okay, that is also
just do it.
Just do it, Shia LaBeouf style. That is the equivalent of, remember in school when the guys, like the biggest like insult they can give was like, you're a pussy, man. And then you just ignore them and you think like, oh, you know, then they think you're like a hot shit. And then they go, you want to go? That was what it felt like to me, if that makes sense, to put that in perspective.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. This was very high school.
The whole thing, like.
I know, bro. And we're gonna talk about it, break it down for everybody. I found a report from it and also our viewpoints of watching this, besides Josh Matthews looking like a lost member of the Backstreet Boys. So we're gonna start off.
That was typical for him.
That was typical for him. Yes. So
that was Josh.
That was Josh. So this was one report for those who have not seen it. So Girls Gone Wild Live from Spring Break was a special WWE Girls Gone Wild crossover pay-per-view, which aired on March 13, 2003. The special had a troubled production from the beginning, which, as Daniel mentioned, as the initial plan to film in Panama City Beach, Florida, was halted due to police threatening to arrest girls who showed too much skin in the filming of the special. As such, the special was instead broadcast live from. All right, I know we said because it's Texas, and we don't hate Texas, but I'm just saying it's Texas. From South Padre Islands, Texas, as a special promotion, diva Dawn Marie went wild on that night's episode of SmackDown, flashing her breasts on television to the crowd. So, how do you pitch this to South Padre Island, Texas, Tequila Frogs, the concert venue? How do you pitch this? Like, hey, here's what we want to do. We want to do this event where girls are going to be half naked and everybody's going to be drunk and we're going to have a good time. How do you explain that to the concert venue? Because have you even heard of a friggin' Tequila Frogs even before watching the show in South Padre Island, Texas? No. Well, how the hell do you pitch that? Like, hey, this
money.
Is what we're gonna... Exactly.
You know, so yeah. I always like to quote Ted DiBiase, everybody's got a price.
And boy, did they.
It's true. I guarantee you they said, no, we don't want anything to do with this. And they said, here's X amount of dollars.
Okay. Exactly. So it got poor reception, like we mentioned. Fans complained that carrying a TVMA rating, the event seemed very censored, as host Jonathan Coachman would often interrupt any scenario or game that got too sexual. The special did contain some partial nudity. However, fans of WWE complained none of the divas showed their breasts as advertised. Now, all right, we mentioned this from their fans. If you're a WWE fan like you and I, Daniel, and we've seen bra and panties matches, we've seen the pudding, we have seen the whole shebang. From the Attitude Era into the Ruthless Aggression Era, Mr. Daniel Crimmins. Yeah. Would you be pissed as a wrestling fan if there was no breastises being shown?
You've seen enough.
I know! Like, why would we be so mad about this? Like, we see this on a fucking weekly basis.
If you were dumb enough to
yes.
pay money for this,
yes,
that's on you.
It is. So... And as we know, the full special has never been released on home video by Girls Gone Wild or WWE, nor is it available on the WWE Network, perhaps due to rights complications or the fact that the product was TVPG, and we are not going to fucking show this event.
You can see that on Peacock.
No. However, recaps of the special are available online as well as HD footage of Dawn Marie's SmackDown flashing and lower quality footages of the body contest between Tori and Nydia in the actual special. Now, the fact that I found this on the forum sites, which still to me, the old forum sites. Now, Daniel, do you remember the old forum sites, the wrestling forums and everything as a kid?
I
I
do.
frequented them a little bit. Like they had some photos. It was so to put it into perspective for people, it was a mixture of wrestling reviews, wrestling content, some nudity, and just everything in between. That's what you got with the forum sites. Which
and there was a tape trade that
yeah,
that's initially how New Japan got big in the United States was the tape trade.
Yeah.
I remember I actually had the IWA King of the Death match 95, the one where was Foley and Funk in the final.
Oh, with the exploding barbed wire, dude.
Which I will tell you, folks, if you've never seen a hard ring until you have seen this thing, like it's solid wood.
Like when
there's no mat, there's nothing.
Like when Mick took that backdrop suplex onto the barbed wire and on the mat, you heard it. Like you fucking heard it, dude.
I mean, and that's how it was. It was a tape trade. Like that's what a lot of these forums were. It's like, hey, I've got this show. What do you? You have this show. Hey, I've got this, and this.
Right, and but that's the thing too. I think the forums and the tape trading and the message boards really led to what we would see with the influx of the wrestling culture. And I mean stuff like this with Girls Gone Wild. And we'll talk about the ads before we look at the card again, or lack thereof. But what were your thoughts on the fact that like the ads would air, like we mentioned the ads like at 2:00 in the morning during Raw, what have you, like seeing this and really being known to this and really seeing ads for this. Like for me, it's like a lot of these girls are like 18 and 19, but the fact that like, again, like we mentioned, like some may be underage, it felt dirty to me just because it's like, it's just smut. Like what you're advertising to people is just breasts. It reminded me of like one big episode of Jerry Springer, like the Jerry Beads. Jerry Springer was just the Jerry Beads, if that makes sense.
I mean, honestly, that's exactly what it was. Like it's, it's all well and good to like that. If you want that, go to a club, go to a bar, watch some adult content. But stuff like this, like
people paid for this, like $20 or whatever the fuck it was. People paid to watch this.
Well, people are idiots.
They are, and we'll get to the idiot
because you knew you weren't gonna get Tori Wilson,
naked.
You've seen her Playboy, spread. You've seen that.
Yep. Now, as we get into this, there's the old logo. Now, I mean, obviously, these are in a lot of low quality from whenever this article was released, but I mean, they always had that. You would show the girls partying. This was the only like teaser that they had. Like Daniel mentioned, because I'm right there with you. This was like legit the only teaser they had. It's just like, oh, by the way, we're doing a show with Girls Gone Wild. Which, first of all, advertising wise, that's a horrible fucking way to advertise. It's just like, oh, by the way, Girls Gone Wild 2 weeks before WrestleMania. Like,
yeah, that's the thing we're doing. We're doing this thing.
They were doing it. It's this thing. It's happening. So it featured a cold open of a few dozen girls walking, waiting to get into the event. Now, what were your thoughts about how? Now, I gotta say, and I will say this: they did pack a good crowd in there. Everybody was excited. Like they got some people up in there, man, for this big concert venue. Like they got some people for this.
The whole show is just.
Yeah, I know we're gonna get into it, but I mean, for me as a 32-year-old man, and now again, you being the first one, now you're older than me, as Dan has established in this show. This show here, I love you, man.
Watch it, Michael.
I know, I'm sorry. Respect your elders. So the fact that Daniel is older than me, now watching it as a in your 30s-year-old man, like we both are, and you at the time, geez, like I was 11 when this came out, so of course I was not going to be watching this as a child. My mom.
This was 19, WrestleMania 19. That would have been what, 2003.
This was in 03, yep.
So I would have been. This would have been around March
of 03,
about 16. Would have been about 16.
Okay, so you were a teenager, and like sophomore high school. And so,
yeah,
as a 16-year-old,
this should have been junior year.
Okay, junior. All right. So, as a 16-year-old, and then thinking about 16-year-old Daniel Crimmins, would this have
Yep.
piqued your interest as a okay, fair enough.
I
Fair enough.
mean, not really. Like, I never understood the appeal to it. Like, the whole for me, it was sloppy. The reason I say that, I was never one that enjoyed, people getting drunk and loud and obnoxious. Like,
And making a
to
fool of
me,
themselves.
yeah, like that to me wasn't. It's like, oh, okay,
All right, yeah.
I was never into the whole party scene. Never was, and I still am not. It's like you're making a fool of yourself. Then there's a difference when WWE does that on a standard show. It's part of the show.
Yes.
Girls Gone Wild. It was a guy who it was exploitation. Let's call it what it was.
It was. It was.
I mean, how many times did he get sued over this where girls are trying to say, hey, no, I don't want this?
Well, that brings me to a part in this. I'm glad you brought this up, Daniel, because again, I know this might be a sensitive topic for people, but I think you and I, we analyze what we do, and this is a part of what we talk about with wrestling, and we're very, how we analyze things is how we analyze things. But Mr. Crimmins, I will say this. There was a part in there where they interviewed a young lady, and you know where I'm going with this. She was on the beach. She had her little, like, Nokia phone. Remember the flip phones back in the day? So her mom is on the phone. And a guy comes up to her with the camera, and she's like, hey, Mom, the guy is asking me, on camera, to show my top. Should we do it? And then the guys around her like, show him, woo, show, woo, on the beach. And the girl lifts up, and she flashes everybody. How do I put this, man? So you know me, Miss Beauty, Strength, and Dominance. You know what I do with LFC. You know how big I am on respect and everything and decorum for women, much like yourself, Daniel Crimmins. Watching that, and again, we talk about things aging like 21 years later. How fucked up is that? Like, they just put the camera right in her face, and she's on the phone with her mom, and she just goes, woo, gotta flash my boobs, and she flashes her boobs. And the mom didn't want her to do it. Like, how uncomfortable has that got to be? Just a camera right in your face, show your boobs.
Again, absolute trash.
It's trash.
And again, I keep going back to the whole Vince thing because, I guarantee you the board is like, Vince, no, this is a bad idea. Don't do it. Vince, being Vince said, no, it'll be great. I guarantee the people you were trying to get are already watching your fucking programming, dumbass.
For me, it's another thing too, and I think it just also shows my level of. So we get to the one part where it's like, here's my thing: the fact that, and I've actually seen these, like they would advertise in the trailer. I'm sure you've seen these from the ads as well. It's like you're making the girls make like orgasmic sounds into the microphone, and you're having Test and the supermodel that we mentioned and Snoop and all of that, and they're just out of their minds drunk, and it's like, come on. And then like they're using bananas and whipped cream and for sexual innuendo and friggin' what the fuck with Test, by the way? Did you notice he had the Test cam like when they're walking down the friggin' aisle to do the swimsuit competition, all this shit? They gave Test a fucking camera. And how do you think they pitched this to Test? Like, hey, Test, you and Stacy, because they were an item at the time, right? Remember they were an item at the time?
Yeah.
So Test and Stacy, you're going to host with the coach. Test, you're going to be a judge. Here's some alcohol. You're going to have a cam. You're going to be videotaping the girls. Like, again, like you got them in not only money for Test, but this is two Test and Stacy, who were younger at the time. They were in their 20s, and they were just partying out of their minds. Like, I mean, this is another thing to get two stars like Test, who, again, the testicles at the time, Mr. Daniel Crimmins, I love my testicles. So getting him a part of this.
I guarantee you with this, he was loving his testicles.
He was loving his testicles.
He was loving them testicles this show.
Oh my Lord. But now I have to ask you, because Tori was there, Tori was having a ball. Kylie Bax. Did Kylie Bax, I don't know if it was me, but I mean everybody was having a ball, but Kylie just seemed like she was just like there, like, yeah, smiling, he paid me, I'm here. Did she seem like she was not as much as enthused as the other ones were?
No, it was a payday.
Yeah, it was just a payday
for Kylie. I guarantee you she got there and it's like, why am I here?
Why am I here? Watching these poor girls just down there. Now, again, from the male point of view, and we will say this with the most respect and the cleanest of ways, we did have a lot of beautiful young ladies up there, which we did. They were very attractive young
Yeah.
ladies. Um, my thing was, I think watching everybody just at the end, and then the person who won, which I didn't even remember who won. I was just like, okay, they picked this girl. And you know why it's just so unmemorable? It's because they just go down the line. They go down the line. It's like, okay, here she is. We're doing this. We're doing that. It was just a way for me also watching this event, just of like, again, we mentioned Coach in the hot tub, and we mentioned all of this stuff. Like, I was never a party guy either. I'm very straight edge, but to me, I would just be like, and I hate to say this as a person. I don't know if this would be you as well, and I think I'm just recanting of people's events in society today. Like, I would probably wind up punching one of these people in the face because they would be so hammered and they would bump into me and they would do something. I'd wind up swinging. I mean, I don't know if that would be you too, but I would wind up swinging.
New Yorkers.
New York goes back to being New Yorkers. Folks, we are the definition of fuck around and find out. If I am in Texas with these bumblefucks, and I'm sorry, don't mean to disrespect, but these bumblefucks just getting drunk and partying, I'm going to smack you in the face if you...
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for having a good time, you know.
Damn.
Now, to quote Cody Rhodes, do I enjoy a libation or two? Yeah.
Yeet.
I'll have a libation. Yeet.
Yeet. But we're not looking to get hammered drunk.
No,
like that.
absolutely not. Like it's sloppy. Plus, I'm a control freak. I don't like not being in control of my body. Like I hate it.
I feel you.
And just
go ahead.
There is a reason this show only happened once.
Yep.
It's nowhere in the WWE archives. How I guarantee you could ask them if this show happened. They'll just say,
no.
What show?
What show? Yep.
And they'll just say, where do you live? What house number? Okay, we're sending you a special gift. And it's an assassin.
And it's this. And now, do you also understand why this did so many low buys? Because I mean, if this is like, what the fuck? Like, why are you partnering with these assholes? Like, I bet there was a lot of people, because if you remember, like Joe Francis, and this ties into it, like at the beginning when he's like, all right, arrest me. You know what I'm saying? You know, they want to shut us down. You can't shut us down. Like that cocky fucking attitude of like, all right, you want to arrest me? And even Coach is like, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, like we're here, like we're trying not to get arrested, Joe. Like we're putting on a show here for the people. Like we're trying not to get arrested, Joe. You know what I'm saying?
I guarantee you that the WWE investors and probably advertisers too, with it being so close to Mania, are like, Vince, you do this, we pull.
And you have WrestleMania in the pipeline, so you can't be fucking around like this.
Well, I mean, we saw it with, what was it, Royal Rumble, when, was it Snickers pulled their advertising?
No, Slim Jim.
Oh, yeah, it was Slim Jim. They're like, yeah, you know, either he goes or
we go. And well,
and that's like their major sponsor, so
that's the thing too. And it's just it boggles my mind. And again, folks, it was hot for its time, because again, I don't want to go down the cancel culture route, but we say this all the time, and we talk about people nowadays in society, and there's stuff to be offended by, and there's stuff that people just whine about. But this in particular, even now, I would feel dirty about it. Even 2003 was a different time. We were more, you know, open and free, and we didn't think. We just did what we did. You know, it's normal society. But today's society, this shit does not fly. It doesn't fly at all. Like, you can't.
It's not okay. Like, it's
okay.
I'm all for doing what you want, but the whole thing wasn't okay, and it was clear what it was, and I don't think, you know, the Girls Gone Wild stuff ever really sold particularly well.
No, because it's for, again, the degeneracy, but also at the same time, it's a certain audience that are just like, oh my God, I'm going to see boobs. Like, if you're that desperate, like, and you have to pay for this, whatever. But it's that.
Go on the internet.
Go on the internet. Like, there's porn sites out there. Just go on the internet. And this was Joe's attempt at, you know, doing his thing and getting this over, but it didn't. And
I think also it was his attempt to try and go mainstream.
They didn't want it. Like, no. It's like we don't want to see like these naked, like the naked girls. Like it's too raunchy. You're having them do shit with whipped cream, and they did the games there, and they had the fucking wheel. And did you notice during like a couple of them test just like move the wheel? It's like, yeah, we're gonna just put it to this, and like there's a lot of
I
stuff on
think
there.
they had Test and Coach there to try and control the situation.
Well, Tess was not going to control shit because he was just drunk. Coach was the more of the peacemaker of that. I mean, Tess tried, but I mean, well, even Stacy tried. Did you notice like Stacy was like even looking at this kind of like, I mean, they had some sexy stuff with her in the whipped cream, but I'm just kind of like, you could tell Stacy was just kind of like, yeah, we're not going to go that far. I got to protect this girl. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even Stacy, you could tell with Stacy, but I think if you really look at it, some of the girls too is just, again, we talk about the beautiful ladies and we talk about, you mentioned exploitation. Like you could even tell on some of the girls' faces, like, yeah, we're not going to go that far. Like we're going to do this. I'm going to do it sensual, but I'm not going to go that far. And I think this is a great representation, this show, of just like, again, people not getting their money's worth because an hour and 20. And at the product at the time, I do say sex sells, Daniel, and you can concur with me.
It does.
It does. But this was just like, I can't believe they did this. Like the WWF, the XFL, Girls Gone Wild. Bad decisions.
Bad decisions. What the fuck decisions? Like, dude, Vince, why?
Why? And it's not like we could even give a review of this. Like, I just want to set the stage of just like, where they were and what they were. But it's just like you see the girls in the hot tub, everybody's having fun. By the way, I just want to say for the record, I didn't even know they had Girls Gone Wild girls because it's like, oh, here's Leilani or whatever her name was. And I'm like, they got fucking Girls Gone Wild, actual girls on the website. I had no idea who these girls were. And they were just like saying, woo, this is me from the beach house. Woo, they didn't believe the crowd that we got here. Did you even like know half, like they even had Girls Gone Wild, like
no,
official? No, like I was sitting there and I'm like, wait a minute, who the fuck is this girl?
Like these are people, like they have like models, like
they got models. Like I just thought it was like, okay, here's girls showing their boobs. I'm like, we actually have models and spokesperson for this. Like, okay, fine, I guess. Now I got to ask you, like 21 plus years later, with the girls that we have, especially the one who won, like who really went on to do really nothing after this. I equate it to like, okay, WWE had the Babe of the Year and the Diva Search. Like the Diva Search started around this time too in 03 because everybody remembers 04 with Christy Hemme onward, but they actually did a Babe of the Year and the Diva Search in 03. Like this was the start of that. Kevin Dunn, you son of a bitch. He's another one that damn Kevin Dunn. Like they tried. Like I mean, were you a fan like the original Diva Searches too that came like surpassed this, or were you just kind of like whatever with that? Was it like a nice little segue?
It was stupid.
It was like, I mean, that's what we got, but it was less raunchier than Girls Gone Wild. It was just they want to be the next diva. They were focusing more on reality TV. Do you think that was also the general consensus for Girls Gone Wild and WWE at that time? Like you wanted to have more reality TV based environment in that because that was hitting you.
Yeah. I think that was kind of like a precursor to like Total Divas and some of the other stuff. Like, because this was right around the time 03 when Survivor was really becoming a thing, and which I didn't know until recently Survivor was still a thing.
Yeah, it's still on. It's still going.
And I think it's very similar. It's like it's reality oriented, and I'm surprised WWE hasn't done more of that. Because there's a certain market for it.
There is. And I mean, I look at the markets like this is, and I think as people, and I agree with you on this because you are a good person, Mr. Daniel Crimmins, my friend. So I will equate this as, you know what it is? We joke about this because we're good dudes. Folks, it's our Catholic guilt. And to all our people who are very spiritual, it's the Catholic guilt. Like we do something wrong, we immediately feel bad about it. Like watching this show, and this is where the Catholic guilt comes in. I'm just looking at it. I feel dirty. I felt dirty after it. I said to you, like, dude,
I need a shower.
I did. I felt dirty watching this because I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I was like preteen, like 12, 13 around this time, 11, like, oh my God, it's girls naked. But like, I'm a 32-year-old man. I'm like, I can't watch this. Like, I knew this was like, okay, like this was a topic that we were going to talk about. But I mean, looking at it now, it's like
for me being, 37, like some of these girls, they're 18, 20-ish.
19, yeah. 21.
I'm old enough to be their parent at that point. Like, I've reached that stage in life where it's like, I look at people and I think, I'm old enough to be your dad.
Yep, that's
I
where I was.
hate that. I hate that.
I hate it too. I hate it too. I mean, you're, again, I don't know if you know this or not, Daniel, but you're older than me. I love you, buddy. But the fact of the matter is this: I wait for him to give me the finger. There it is. So the problem with this is too. It's like I'm old enough, like Daniel said, to be like a family member, a dad, or somewhat of the family, where it's just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like a lot of these girls, like a lot of them had good careers. Like I think one of them was like a lawyer. We mentioned the librarian. We mentioned all these people. I'm like, what the fuck are you ladies doing? Like you're making good money and you're doing this horse shit.
You're pissing it away.
You're pissing it away for this. Now, with today's market too, Daniel Crimmins, where how we've normalized like OnlyFans, many vids, and this is how people do make a living from doing content creation like that with just the community that brings in. Do you feel it's more normalized today than what we had back in 03, which was still kind of taboo for the adult market?
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, especially with something like an OnlyFans where, you see, female wrestlers doing it, guys doing it too, like, cool, whatever, you do you. Like, I think it's normalized. It's brought it into more the forefront and just saying, hey, here's the thing, especially during COVID. Like, when that was happening, a lot of people did it, made good money. It's like, it's not for me to tell you what to do, as long as you're making your money legally.
Yeah, I'm cool with it.
Whatever. You do you. I'm going to do me. I'm going to enjoy my life.
The thing too is, and I'll add this point before we do go to our final thoughts. I feel like Jerry Springer, God rest his soul, our final thoughts. No, it's so like it was even hard to like do a review on this because it's like, oh, here we are with whipped cream. Oh, here they are showing their breasts again, because there's really not much to talk about this, folks. So we're giving you the general.
And there's not much we can't, like Mike said, we can't show even stills.
Show a lot of this on YouTube. Like we can show a graphic of Tori and Nydia, but that lasted like 10 seconds because in your right mind, and we mentioned this earlier in today's topic, in today's forum, but it's just like, I even can tell you as a kid, I can even tell you now, and as I was watching this for the first time, I'm like, there is no goddamn way that they're going to have Nydia or Tori Wilson show their breasts on this fucking pay-per-view. It ain't happening. I knew they were going to do an angle. I knew they were going to do the schmaz, and that's what we got. And then Tori got carried out. Like, first of all, the chair shot. What did you think about that chair shot? Good Lord, she nailed Tori with that chair. Fuck's sake, man.
Oh, she nailed her.
Nailed Tori Wilson with that chair.
And, let's just call things what they are.
Yes.
We look at everything and how, this whole Girls Gone Wild shit should never have happened.
Right.
It was ill-advised. And, it's Vince being, Vince.
Here's what we're going to do. Joe, get him on the line. Let's do a pay-per-view. Like, again, like literally the only promotion was Eric Bischoff saying we got Girls Gone Wild on Raw. Tess talking about it and how he's going to be at the Girls Gone Wild event. Like we mentioned, Dawn Marie and Tori Wilson, they promoted it because Dawn Marie showed, and of course they censored it on live TV on UPN at the time. But that was like the promotion we got. It was like, oh yeah, by the way, here's this show. That was all it got. That was all it got. It was like when WWE came out with the Crush Hour video game, and they were like, we're going to be the Twisted Metal of video games. We're not going to have any wrestling. They're going to be driving the cars and doing all this crap.
They didn't promote that game at all.
They didn't promote the game at all.
And they wonder why it failed.
I know. Like, it's the same. Well, Raw 2 didn't fail because that was on the Xbox. They at least promoted Raw 2 and all those games on Xbox, but Crush Hour was just like, yeah, nothing. Like, nothing. And that came out after WrestleMania, the Crush Hour game. If you've never played the game, folks, it's fucking terrible. It's fucking bad. And it was not good at
It's
all.
worse than WWE 2K20.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you see, now you're putting them on the same pedestal. Yeah, that. All right, you know what? All right, you got me on that one. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say that because I was going to say 2K20, as bad as that was, Crush Hour was worse. Okay, you got me on that one. All right, I'll give you that. But yeah, it was bad. It was really, really bad, much like this show. So, all right, I'm going to say this. Like, even with the whipped cream, even with the sensuality, it just was bad. And Tori Wilson, even with the angle of her getting knocked out with the chair, it was bad. It was just all around whatever. It was what it was. It is this. It is a, to quote you, Daniel Crimmins, it was a this of just debauchery. And like I said, I knew it was going to be hard for us to talk about it just because of how we are. But I hope we gave you a good analysis. If you've not seen it, I mean, go out and watch it. If you won't, I would not
honestly, if you are that adamant about seeing it,
well, yeah, there's
we're not even going to put a link up.
We're not even going to put the link. We're not.
Look for it.
Look for it. Just
it's like with anything. If you want to find it, it's there. It's out there. It's not difficult to find.
It's not. And I think from what we included with our popular culture and our thoughts about this, I know usually with these folks, we like to talk about it. We get serious and we talk and analyze, dissect, much like we did with this. But as a fan, and I can honestly say this was probably one of the episodes that we've done where I legit felt dirty watching this. This was only topical because we came up on the anniversary of this. So it was a topic. I hope you at least enjoyed some of our thought process on this. And I think the last thing I could say to this, besides the fact that it sucked, it did make sense for the fact that it was spring break because people do go wild. And we mentioned Daniel's not much of a partier, nor am I. But for the advertising, it did make sense. I think you can concur because it was spring break. Like, it did make sense for that standpoint, I guess. You know?
Yeah. It was logical.
Yeah.
Sometimes logic isn't the right thing.
All right, I'll equate it with this. Like, you're an MTV fan. Like, when TRL was very big at the time, too, as well. And this was sort of when TRL was kind of phasing out. When they would go to Cancun, and you had the girls in the bikinis walking and, doing their thing. Like, here's Eminem performing or whoever, and the girls are just walking out there modeling. I was fine with that because it's modeling and it's spring break, but they're not showing their boobs. They're just out there dancing in a fucking bikini. Yeah. Like, there's a complete difference because somebody is going to make that comparison. Well, they did this and you have girls modeling, but they weren't showing their breasts. They were just out there dancing, having a good time. It was harmless, if that makes sense. Like, it was harmless.
But there's a reason the show is not talked about. Yep. It never happened. I think it's just the whole thing was a mess.
It was a mess. And
I think they knew it, and I think that's why the show ended early. I think they realized, you know what? No.
Did it also kind of feel rushed to you how they kind of just went to the main thing of we're going to announce who the girl is? Like, did it feel rushed to you?
And I think they made this. I think somebody told them either you end this or we're pulling you off the air.
Well, Coach did have the earpiece. If you didn't notice, Coach was like very frantic and like, okay, let's get the winner. like yeah. Somebody probably.
I think Vince told them. They said, "Look, cut it." And I think with Mania being so close, maybe the network is like, you know what? Either cut this or you're not going to have Mania.
Well, we did get Mania, and this
was a terrible one.
He's got to go about how bad. 40 years for all WrestleManias. Daniel Crimmins watches it for a month. You're a brave soul. You're a tough son of a bitch. So yeah, that was our thoughts on Girls Gone Wild, and we hope you enjoyed this season 4. It was a hell of a premiere. It was a touchy subject. It was a tough subject, but I will say this. We hope you enjoyed. We hope you enjoyed this listen and this deep dive into it because it was an interesting time. It was the Ruthless Aggression era. It was different times of we're going to show boobs and all of this stuff. We can't get away with this now, and we don't want to get away with this now. Times have changed. We hope we've all have adapted as a society, and also these women are older now, and I'm curious to see how they were even reflected on this. I think some of them do regret it. A lot of them probably do regret it, but it was popular at the time. And fuck you, Joe Francis. That's all I got to say. How about you?
And you know what, Mike? What do we have coming up for the rest of the season?
Okay, so we do have a lot of great topics, and we'll discuss some more as we get with each episode. But since we brought it up last season, we are going to do this for our second episode. And do you know what our second episode is going to be, Daniel Crimmins?
What would that be?
We are going to be looking at the ECW on Sci-Fi era. Yes, from the Sandman versus the Zombie, from December to Dismember, which we covered in last season. Go back and check it out. from the era of the New Breed versus the ECW originals, from the era of Matt Hardy as the ECW champion,
From Do-Rag Vince.
From Do-Rag Vince, from Colin Delaney, from Knock Knock Who's There, Braden Walker, and I'm going to knock your brains out. Yes,
we're going to talk Who's There, Braden Walker.
We're going to talk about Ricky Ortiz and the rally towel, which, by the way, Ricky Ortiz is a lucky man because you know who he's married to?
Who?
Layla L. Ricky Ortiz. Really? Yes, that is the one thing I am envious of you, sir. Ricky Ortiz, you lucky son of a bitch. And we are going to talk about Jack Thwaga as the ECW champion. We're going to talk about the return of Christian, or as Todd Grisham said, it's Christian. And that infamous call when he re-debuted on the ECW brand. And, of course, Ezekiel Jackson being the last ECW champion. Yeah. So we're going to look at the So we're going to look at the ECW on Sci-Fi era. So, Daniel Crimmins, before we close this out, what are y'all doing with the TSK? Promote it. What do you got coming up in the pile?
I believe we're doing the show tomorrow. We're doing, I believe, the AEW pay-per-view coming up. I'm going to be getting back into my show. Been, moving, getting all settled, all that. More is going to be coming out. Going to get back into this wonderful, crazy, crazy world of pro wrestling, which, hey, we all love it. And you know what? If you aren't subscribed to Mike's channel yet, what in God's name are you doing?
Subscribe to the channel, Mike Larkin 92. Follow SM Show 1.
So you can see our faces.
These faces right here. Follow SM Show 1 MCL 92 on Twitter, Larkin_92 and M Larkin MB on Instagram, LFCfights.com, StephenMikeShow.com, Mike Larkin 92. See this face. Why aren't you subscribed? Click the like button.
Click the bell so you get the notifications. So when you see our faces, because you want to see our faces.
You want to see our faces. And we like this stuff.
Acknowledge us.
Acknowledge us and acknowledge the Crimster over here. Check out DCrimmins1 on Instagram. Give him a follow. And also, all the links will be in the description for all of our episodes, all of our playlists. Keep subscribing because I know we are in the 840s now. So let's hit 1K.
We're to the moon. To the moon.
And I get to work with this son of a gun over here, Robert Davis and Nicola McDonald, deep into the heart of wrestling. Our latest episode is out where we looked at the life and times of Tessa Blanchard. Yeah, we went there. Paul Morales and I with the weekly review, the Stephen Mike Show, Pop Culture, On the Mic with Mike, LFC. Y'all know the drill. Stay tuned. We have a hell of a season 4 coming up. Bigger topics. I know this is one of our touchier, more serious topics, but hey, again, thank you for listening. We appreciate you. Girls Gone Wild, Joe Francis, Vince McMahon. That's all I got to say.
Vince McMahon.
The double bird. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you in episode 2 of season 4 of Uncaged. For Daniel Crimmins, my name is Mike Larkin. I'm going to go take a shower.